Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and I am really honored to have in the studio with me today our good friend, Dr. Larry Jung. He's pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Jacksonville, and the reason we have him here today because to help continue the celebration of an incredible journey that Pastor Larry, you've been on in your congregation from the time you bought the property until last Sunday. How long has it been?
Well, we actually bought the property in '98, so we got it paid off in May of this year, so 15 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Right.
Well, this past Sunday, you burned the mortgage.
We did.
And that's no small task.
Well, it certainly wasn't for me because I had trouble getting it started. I never dreamed I was going to have trouble actually getting the thing lit, you know. And the wind started coming up, and I had my little lighter there, and we had to go get a pot from the kitchen and actually tear it up and put it in the pot to burn that thing. So, yeah, but it got burned.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, this has been an incredible journey because the Jacksonville Presbyterian Church for years has been in the old building there that everybody knows where it is. You still have that church.
We do.
That's still part of church. That's still part of what you do. And but the Lord led you. Your congregation grew, and you began to build. And I'll never forget the day that the council over there said no.
Right. I won't forget that day either.
And what happened on that? Well,
they were concerned about traffic and noise and congestion, and they felt like the church was just going to really grow rapidly, and they feared another big church in the area, so they, I think it was more out of fear than anything. They basically said no, and as you know the story, we gradually won their approval, and then we had another group, private group of citizens that took us to court, so we had to contend with that litigation, which we did for a couple of years, and by 2003 we actually got our conditional use permit. You might remember it was on a technicality that we actually won the conditional use permit. So.
Yeah, incredible stories. Then the construction.
Right.
And how long?
Construction was from '04 to '06. We built our two big buildings by '06, and then in '07 we added an office building.
All right.
So.
Now, part of that construction was, and your use permit had to do with the type of layout you did. You have three separate buildings, and they don't let you connect them.
Right. That's right. That was according to the conditional use permit. They wanted a smaller footprint, if you will. They call it that, on the property to kind of match up better with the houses that are adjacent to the church.
And there's a little theme there because that goes
back.
What is the theme?
Well, there was a fictional story created by our historical consultant George Kramer to help win the planning commission's approval, and that was a farmer was living there. He was a member of the church. That's why there's the Christian education building is built like a barn. Right. It was his barn for his farm, and so he offered property to the church, and we came in there and built this building, and so that's why it's made to kind of look like a farm. So.
I don't know, folks, if you've never visited their church, it's just beautiful. It really is. It's just so special, and if the least of which, go out there for Good Friday and Monday, Thursday services. All right, so you went through the construction. Like most constructions, did it get more expensive than you thought?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was at the period of time in our economy when things were just booming.
Yeah. And
we had a large group of retired men that came out, and we figured out they saved us about $500,000 in labor costs. And the contractor was very gracious about working with them and allowing them to do a lot of the work. But the whole project still cost us over $5 million.
All right. So, and you paid it off.
We did.
Now, what happened to you and your congregation spiritually during this process?
Well, the first campaign that we ran from 2000 to 2003 really promoted a tremendous amount of spiritual growth because the whole campaign's theme was sacrificial giving. Equal sacrifice but not equal giving. That was the theme, basically. And so what we were asking people to do was everyone to give sacrificially. And what that meant to a young single mom with 3 kids and what that meant to a successful businessman were two different things.
Right.
But what we were asking people to do was to just really surrender and to give up to God what they felt that God was in kind of leading them or inspiring them to give to the campaign. We asked people to, pray about this, consider it. If you're married, to discuss it carefully with your spouse. And people did. And we heard people's stories. Part of the campaign was people getting up and sharing how God had led them to give a certain whatever they were giving. And people were giving all kinds of interesting things. I mean, we had several cars that were given. We had 3 pieces of property in Jacksonville that were given. We had annuities. We had, just all these different things. And it was amazing to see what people were giving.
All right, so you move, you're in, you have a mortgage, and statistics show that the giving can drop at that point.
Right.
But you accelerated.
It continued to grow, so that when we moved into the property in 2006, when it was actually finished, we only owed $850,000 out of a $5 million project. So, 4/5 of it or more was already paid. And it was this last $850,000 that was the big challenge. And the guy who had ran our first campaign, this financial consultant, told us, he says, once you get into that building, the rest of that it's going to be tough to raise that remaining money. And he was absolutely right.
All right, so how did you as a pastor stay focused spiritually when you have this incredible financial pressure and you probably have 6 zillion committees telling you to do it this way?
Yeah.
How did you balance
it? It was hard. I'm not going to, make it sound easy, because it was tough. We're looking at this nice historic church that we could have easily sold.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've got that, and you could say, well, we could raise, $500,000 or $1 million just selling that thing and pay off our debt, and there was a part of us that wanted to do that, and yet we really felt like there's a place that God still had plenty of ministry left for that old historic church, and it's true. He does.
Right.
And part of it was that idea. Part of it too was we respected the legacy of the pioneers who founded that church. They had prayed and they had sacrificed to put that building up.
Wow.
And it's like, and now what are we going to do? We're going to turn around and sell it to the highest bidder of whoever it might be.
Right.
So we wanted to respect that legacy also.
That's wonderful. Now, is Jacksonville the oldest church in Southern Oregon?
It's the oldest continuing church in Southern Oregon. Now, when I say continuing church, we're talking about congregations that have kind of come and gone. When we were founded back in 1857, there was already a Methodist church that was meeting in town. The Catholics had already started their services. But both those two groups, the Methodist Church folded in 1928, and the Catholic Church, they basically made that into a mission parish. So that's why we kind of define it that way. We are the 10th oldest Presbyterian church in Oregon Territory. So there were earlier Presbyterian churches that were established, like in Oregon City and Portland and different places. But we are the oldest continuing church of any denomination in Southern Oregon.
Wow. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams you'd be taking on a $5 million project?
No.
Did God kind of blindside you on that?
Our church back in the 1970s almost folded. It almost decided to go out of existence.
Really?
And and thankfully, their wise people prevailed, and the Lord wanted that church to continue, and so it did, and it's gradually been growing ever since that time.
Well, I've watched your growth. It's just been phenomenal, and you seem to attract families. Middle-aged families. You obviously have a full variety of demographics, but there seems to be an incredible core of young families with you.
And we do, and it's become that more and more that way in recent years. In the 80s, I've been there since 1985, and I came in as you know, real young, 31-year-old pastor, and the challenge was to try to attract younger families, and it didn't happen at first, and we were struggling. And the first 5 years here was a real struggle, and then all of a sudden, God started bringing these families in. So it's been a very gradual kind of development.
Real quickly, a couple of other things. A personal thing. You wanted to go to Napa.
Yes.
When you were leaving Sacramento,
that's right.
You wanted to go to Napa. Tell us that story real quick.
Okay, it's a wonderful story. There's a church there, Presbyterian church in the north part of town, built right next to a vineyard. Beautiful vineyard. Oh, it was just incredible. The weekend that we were interviewed there, and I had my heart set on that place. And And it came down to me and this other guy from Texas. And the church, I mean, they had 150 people apply for that job. You can imagine.
Yeah.
And they chose the guy from Texas. And it devastated me. And I just thought, oh, God, why? It's one of those kind of deals. Yeah. So when they started, South Stage started putting that vineyard in next to our new church, the Lord reminded me of that. And he said, "You got your vineyard." And I thought, and I told the congregation that.
Yeah.
And they loved it.
And you got a vineyard that just backs right up to the church.
We do.
It's just beautiful and serene to look out across that.
Very pastoral.
What's next for you in the church?
We have improvements that we need to make on the property. That some of which we kind of. We didn't even realize that we could put lighting in the back part of our parking lot until we read our updated conditional use permit that basically allowed it.
Yeah.
And so we've got to do some improvements with parking situation, with drainage, just some basic property improvements. But we'd also like, and we're praying about. Planning another church, another evangelical Presbyterian church here.
I think we got some footage. I don't know. Did we show it already, guys? I don't know. We haven't showed it? We don't have the footage? Okay, I'm sorry. I know that Steve ran a story on you burning the mortgage in the cook pot. I'm looking at that and I go,
we had to do it.
I know. I'm looking at that. You're holding this big pot and I go, what's that all about? And I realized now it was the wind.
Yeah. I had one of the guys in our church said, "Well, I had a little propane blowtorch you could have used." And it's like, well, yeah, I guess I almost needed a flamethrower on that particular day because the wind was so.
Well, Larry, congratulations.
Thank you.
You have handled this with such incredible integrity and grace, with incredible opposition. And I just want to commend you the way you've led your congregation, and to all of your entire congregation, your church family, congratulations. This is wonderful.
Thanks, and thanks for your support.
We stand behind you all the way. God bless you, pal. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at the Dove TV. Did you know that when you support the Dove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Well, my next guest is John Guandolo. He is the founder of understandingthethreat.com, and he's very concerned about the Islamization of Europe and even the United States. He's a former FBI agent. He's authored 2 books. Join me in my conversation now with John. But today we have a very special guest with us. John Guandolo, is with us. He's the founder of understandingthethreat.com. By the way, you may want to jot that down, understandingthethreat.com, and go to his website. He's a counter-terrorist expert and former FBI agent. He also co-authored the book Sharia, The Threat to America, and he's now authored a book, Raising a Jihadist Generation, and I guess that's due to be released any time. Is that right, John?
That's correct.
When's that coming out?
We're hoping in about the next 5 weeks.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, there's a lot going on here, and we're watching Europe with all of its interesting problems by allowing the Islamization, I guess, of Europe. And is that coming to America, you think?
Well, yes, and I believe it's already here. I think a lot of the things that we're seeing in Europe, we're seeing the real conflict between the government entities and the Islamic community on the street. But a lot of the things that are happening there in Europe specifically are happening here. I mean, we have had, just like they had in England, vehicular jihad, where Muslim jihadis drive over people or attempt to drive over them to kill them. We've had beheadings here in the United States. We've had honor killings, and we certainly have, as Raising a Jihadi Generation explains, a significant support network here in the United States that exists to raise and support these jihadi operations.
Now, what happened in Europe? Why did they allow it to go so far? I mean, I even heard rumors where they're allowing even the practice of Sharia law. How can that happen, coincide with parliamentary rule?
Well, that's a great question, and one of the things, one of the strategies that what the other side calls the Global Islamic Movement It's primarily led by a group called the Muslim Brotherhood, which I would suspect a lot of your viewers have now heard of after what's gone on in Egypt and Libya and Syria and elsewhere in the world. But the Muslim Brotherhood runs the most prominent organizations, Islamic organizations in the United Kingdom. So when they advise the leadership of the British government on how to deal with the Islamic community, you actually have the enemy that just happens to be wearing a suit and a smile explaining to the British leadership how they should conduct counterterrorism operations. But the people the individuals that the British government are leaning on are themselves jihadis. It's an absolutely crazy situation. So the way they intend to impose and are imposing Sharia isn't necessarily by parliamentary rule. It's by imposing it and doing things like saying, as a national policy in some of these countries, you can't say anything defamatory against Islam because it's offensive. And while that may sound okay on the surface, what it's actually doing is stifling the thousands of years of free speech that the Western world has observed. But that's how it's being implemented. And by the way, that's being done here in the United States as a matter of policy as well.
Yeah, I want to come to that. But one more question on Europe. Do you think they'll begin to push back? Do you think there'll be a pushback, and can it be effective in Europe?
There is pushback. There are a couple countries, Germany and France come to mind, where the governments are actually more aware of the threat than in other European countries, and they are actually starting to do things to push back on the Islamic community, certainly the leaders of the Islamic community, who in those countries are also Muslim Brotherhood. But you also have citizen groups that are very angry about how far the government's allowed it to go. The problem is, if the citizens on the street rise up against the Muslim community, you're going to have chaos. And we're already starting to see that. You see the riots in Sweden. We saw the riots in France 2005. And we saw after the two Muslims chopped the head off the British soldier a week before last outside of London in Woolwich, the citizens, the English Defence League and others are really angry and rising up. What you really need to see is the government do what it's supposed to do and step in and take control.
Well, we know that this is a philosophy hiding behind a religion, or at least they're trying to turn a philosophy into religion. So therefore, right now, they're getting by as religious freedom more than anything else.
Well, that's correct. But again, from my perspective, and when I say from my perspective, the facts of the issue, when we talk about this from like a war-fighting standpoint or from a counterterrorism standpoint, a law enforcement standpoint, as well as Christian and Jewish leaders in Europe interfacing with these individuals, this movement that we're seeing, and it's a global movement, which I think most of your viewers are pretty much aware if you watch 5 minutes of the news at night, is that this is not a religious issue. This is a totalitarian movement that seeks to rule, and it's the back support of this, the backdrop behind this, their own documents, their own speeches. What they seek to do is impose a form of government on people, and that's not a religious cause. But you're right, they put the mantle of religion on top of this.
Right. So we're watching it unfold in America. Of course, most recently the Boston bomber, and of course other incidences perhaps we don't even know about that are never really make the news. Why are we slow to react to this? I mean, why are we allowing this to happen in America? And on top of that, it seems like we have an administration that's actually pushing it.
Well, a couple things. Those are some really big questions, and so I'll try to address them as best I can. But they're the right questions. The first thing is that this movement is here in the United States. The Muslim Brotherhood specifically has thousands of front organizations, and I'll just throw out a few so your viewers understand this is real. There was a trial in 2008 called the United States versus Holy Land Foundation. And I started to say the 1900s because the 1990s, because this investigation began more than 15 years before it finally came to an end in 2008. where the case was the largest Hamas and terrorism financing case in the United States. The Holy Land Foundation, at the time it was indicted, was the largest Islamic charity in America. Its leaders were all indicted for sending millions of dollars to Hamas overseas. But the evidence laid out in this case demonstrated that there is a large Muslim Brotherhood movement here in the United States, that the most prominent Islamic organizations in America are part of that movement. Specifically, the Muslim Students Association, which, by the way, you guys have there at Oregon State and Oregon University and most of the major universities in Oregon. The Islamic Society in North America. You have Islamic societies, local Islamic societies, which are Muslim Brotherhood entities in Oregon. Many of the Islamic centers, which I believe there's one right there in Medford that's fairly new. Those are almost all of them, not every single one, but the vast majority of them are controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslim American societies, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is actually a Hamas entity. So you have all these Muslim Brotherhood entities there. So when you ask why aren't we doing anything at the state and national level, the very Islamic organizations that the political and civil organizations are reaching out to in the Muslim community, those are Muslim Brotherhood entities exclusively.
Wow.
And so when they come to you with, as I said, with a suit and a smile, and they tell you whatever they tell you, which is generally untrue about what their true nature is, once we trust them, once individuals believe, well, this is a nice guy, I'm going to trust him, they've got you. And then they get you to walk down this road where whatever they say, you're going to take it face value because you're looking at them to be the experts in the Islamic community or the liaison between you and the Islamic community, whether you're a pastor, a rabbi, a police chief, the head of the FBI or DHS office. That's how they get this done.
All right. The other part of that question was, it appears that this administration is Islamic friendly. Can you comment on that?
Well, I think if you just look objectively at the policies that the current administration is enacting, very pro-Muslim Brotherhood, they're openly engaged internationally and at the U.S. level and at the regional level with only Muslim Brotherhood entities in the Islamic community. Clear pro-Hezbollah and pro-Iran, or at least neutral to Iran, but certainly I would argue pro-Hezbollah, which is very dangerous because there are numerous Hezbollah and Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps elements here in the United States. By doing this, we are emboldening them here in the United States. We have a very pro-Palestinian administration and very anti-Israel. I think you could say at the very best, we are certainly not supportive of Israel in the ways we need to be that will ensure their survival. Yeah. So yes, if you just look at it from a policy standpoint, and I will say this going back to the freedom of speech issue, the U.S. government currently is in support of policies that make defamation of Islam at a minimum something that the government's going after, but certainly looking at it from in the future as being something that we may criminalize as a government. Wow. This directly contradicts our Constitution, and yet at the United Nations and in the State Department of the United States, those are the policies we're moving towards, and the very people we're working with to do it are Muslim Brotherhood leaders here in the U.S.
Unbelievable. It's called understandingthethreat.com, and what kind of resources do you have there, John, for people that go to your website?
Well, certainly have quite a bit of information and resources. I have an 80-minute DVD of the totality of the threat here in North America and the United States. We've got other things, write-ups of how to answer people who throw out the typical responses saying, well, this is crazy, this can't be happening. And in fact, what you're seeing in Europe, we have a lot of that here in the United States. It's not being reported. And then obviously my blog site that's right there. And I usually do 2 to 3 articles a week, and I encourage your viewers and your listeners to to go to that.
All right, it's called understandingthethreat.com, and also be on the lookout for his book, soon to be released in a couple of weeks, Raising a Jihadi Generation, and that'll be coming out. And I would assume that will be available at the bookstores, Barnes & Noble, and online at Amazon.
That's our hope. Yeah, certainly be able to Amazon.com and through the website.
All right. John, thank you so much. Let's stay in touch and get you back soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate
have a good
you.
day. All right, understandingthethreat.com is a great website full of some really neat resources. Coming up next, well, we're going to continue the topic about Boy Scouts. What about your children praying in school? And even some of the problems with social media. I think you'll enjoy our next guest here next on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at the Dove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market. But at the Dove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Our next guest today is Brad Dacus. He is president of the Pacific Justice Institute. Formerly, he was a legislative assistant to U.S. Senator Phil Gramm. And Brad, nice to have you. By the way, are you in Sacramento?
Well, actually in Orange County. But we have an office in Sacramento, California.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to see you. Hey, thanks for giving us some of your time. Tell us about the Pacific Justice Institute. What is it?
Oh, certainly. We are a nonprofit 501c3 legal defense organization.
You weren't IRS targeted, were you?
Well, no, we weren't, but we're trying to defend those who were without charge. We do all our work without charge. We defend faith, family, and freedom. We handle more case matters on the West Coast defending faith, family, and freedom than any other organization in the country. And we have the largest network of attorneys on the West Coast as well who volunteer their time without charge to go to bat for issues of faith and family.
Well, good for you. And how do people get a hold of your organization?
Certainly. It's the easiest way is just simply to go to our website, which is pacificjustice.org, pacificjustice.org. There they can sign up to get our press releases, our updates. They can also support our work as well and become one of our team partner members. That's
wonderful. Well, thanks for what you do. Hey, there's a lot going on, and I understand even in California now, there's some additional pressures put on the Boy Scouts. And, of course, they most recently have had an incredible ruling allowing homosexuals in next year. Where do you think this is going to go and lead to?
Well, this outrageous piece of legislation is most alarming. It's called the Anti-Boy Scouts Bill. And what it does is, and it's unbelievable, it actually says to all nonprofit youth organizations in California, it says that unless they're willing to hire homosexual leaders, youth leaders, or transsexual, transgender youth leaders, if they're not willing to do that, then they're going to lose their state tax-exempt status, a huge burden on any of these nonprofits. And that includes not only the Boy Scouts, the 4-H Club, Special Olympics, it also includes religious Christian organizations, potentially like Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Young Life, Youth for Christ, and Awanas. So it's a very serious assault on religious freedom, freedom of association, and all under the guise of tolerance. It is outrageous intolerance.
Wow, unbelievable. Where is it in the process?
Well, this is even more alarming, Perry, where we're at, in that many people thought, well, it's not going to go anywhere. It's already passed the state Senate in California at a vote of 27-9, all Democrats voting for it, all Republicans voting against it. It's now on its way to the state assembly where it's going to be very close. And if we're not able to stop it, then it'll be going to the governor's desk. And if it's signed into law, you can be assured that we at the Pacific Justice Institute have already made a commitment to challenge it in federal court as being an unconstitutional violation of religious freedom and the rights of organizations to carry out their convictions and what they feel is best for young people.
All right, so what does this tell you that's happening to the Christian faith? I mean, it seems to be under assault at all levels under the name of tolerance.
Yes, the whole issue of, for example, like homosexual marriage, that's not the big issue as far as I'm concerned. That's an issue. But we're much farther down the river in terms of intolerance, in terms of people of faith, because now we have laws pending like this that are outright oppressive of people who believe differently. And that's the real problem here. The real rub is that these laws now, which had first the guise of just tolerance, are now being overtly persecuting of institutions that are simply carrying out their beliefs and convictions on both on a federal level, state level, a local level. And we at Pacific Justice Institute, consequently, are fighting these very aggressively. In fact, Perry, if I could just touch on one.
Sure.
SB 1172 became law in California on January 1st. This is a new law which bans any counselors, including Christian counselors, any licensed counselors, from giving any counsel from anyone under the age of 8 to anyone under the age of 18 that is struggling with same-sex attraction. It prevents them from getting any counseling to them that in any way steers them away from same-sex attraction or same-sex sexual conduct.
Wow.
So this is outrageous. We've already gone into federal court. We at Pacific Justice Institute, we argued the case. We got a federal judge to grant a preliminary injunction on behalf of our clients against this new law, and it's now pending before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But it just shows you how extreme it is in that this new law would even apply to clergy who are licensed counselors.
All right. So it seems to me, Brad, what we're really dealing with here now, and I agree with you, all these issues are important, and we ought to, as we feel led by the Lord to be involved in the various issues, we ought to certainly participate there. But now it's accelerated to the simple issue of religious freedom.
Right. Exactly. And we're talking about the need for the church to, it's not a matter of just, whether I morally think of it right of this group or that or this people and what they're doing. That's not the issue. The issue is out of love for children and truth, for us to step up to the plate and to defend the ability for youth ministries to continue to manifest the love of Christ to these young people, many in inner cities who have no father or male role models growing up, and their ability to function. And if we don't defend these nonprofit youth organizations, for example, or counseling ministries, the next on the chopping block, I'm convinced, Perry, is going to be churches, in synagogues, and religious institutions themselves, and telling them that they have to lose their state tax exempt status as well, or be punished in similar ways. This is the end game that we see being played out just a few years from now if we're not able to stop this. And Lord willing, we're very hopeful that we will, pursuant to the grace we've been given through our Constitution and the grace we've seen God in our courts to date.
That's wonderful. Brad, back to Boy Scouts just for a moment. Do you think they had any other option besides letting the homosexuals in?
Yeah, it's really interesting. They could have stayed with their existing policy. The real critical factor, as far as I'm concerned, is how they implement this new policy. It's frankly, it's very common for young boys and early adolescents, 12, 13, 14 years old, a lot of Boy Scouts of that age, to have curiosities, have struggles, have fears that they may be homosexual. Those kinds of feelings are actually pretty normal in that they're addressing these kind of struggles from boyhood to manhood. So as far as having boys in that have struggles in this area or feel like they may be homosexual, that's not the issue. The issue is whether they take this policy, because the Boy Scouts is all about helping them go into manhood and affirming their masculinity and manhood and confidence in manhood. So the real question is whether they're going to allow this to be a guise to approve of homosexuality and to salute homosexuality. And that is the real concern that we have at the Pacific Justice Institute. We're hopeful that the Boy Scouts, while welcoming those in who are struggling with homosexuality, who think they're homosexual, which is very fluid at that age, that they still maintain the moral compass and the moral guidelines that they have against any such sexual activity or conduct. And we're hopeful that they will do that.
A couple quick things. Tell us about your case with the American Humanist Association.
Yeah, this is outrageous, Perry. This lawsuit was filed against the city of Lake Elsinore. The city of Lake Elsinore is funding a war memorial which depicts a classic European cemetery for war veteran people who died in World War II. It has a row of crosses, even a Jewish a Jewish Star of David as a grave marker. It also has a soldier there, an American flag. The caption is defending freedom. So it's clearly of a secular purpose of recognizing those who've died in war and defending our freedom and liberty. And yet, because it has some crosses on it and a Star of David, even though it's in a secular setting for a secular purpose, this lawsuit is trying to halt it from being implemented. We at Pacific Justice, as we have before for other cities, we're representing the city of Lake Elsinore without charge, and we've committed to defend this war memorial all the way to the United States Supreme Court if necessary, on behalf of those who died in defending our freedoms in the first place.
Unbelievable. Listen, you're terrific. I want to have you back, and people can go to pacificjustice.org to find out more about what you do and maybe even support what you do. And Brad, thank you for what you do. This is incredible, and I really want to keep tabs on you on the movement of that bill there in California.
We'd love to do so, and I appreciate your fine work as well, Perry. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right, God bless you. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at the Dove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on the Dove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Hi. We're trying to get a hold of him. Hopefully we can here in the next couple of seconds. Stephen Arterburn. He's an award-winning author of over 8 million books in print, including the best sellers of Every Man's Battle and Healing is a Choice. He also has been the editor on 10 Bible projects, including the Life Recovery Bible. If we can make the Skype connection here in the next couple of seconds, we're going to talk to him about his latest book. Pretty fascinating. The 7-Minute Marriage Solution. Yes, 7 things to stop, 7 things to start, and 7 minutes that matters most. And by the way, I don't know if we have a picture of it. If not, I'll hold that up to you. That's what it looks like. You may want to check it out online or at the Christian bookstores, Evangel in the Mall, or perhaps even Christian Discount Books, and see if they have it. It's put out by Worthy Publishing, and I think it's pretty fascinating. I haven't read the whole thing, skimmed through it, and it's pretty interesting. So hopefully we can connect him. I'm not sure where we are yet with all of that, but I think we're trying to get an audio connection or a video connection with him. What? Okay. Stephen, are you there? Oh, I think he is.
Can you be on the air? They're there.
Are you there, Stephen? Okay, let's see here. We'll wait to get him through the patch to the boards here. Stephen, are you there? Okay, a couple seconds here. Again, the book is entitled The 7 Minutes Marriage Solution. The 7-Minute Marriage Solution. 7 things to stop, 7 things to start, 7 minutes that matters. Stephen Arterburn's with us today. Are you there, Stephen? Okay, I'm not sure what we're doing on the audio thing here.
I am here.
Oh, there you are.
Can hear me.
I can hear you now. There you are. Hi, how are you, friend?
What a relief. I am good. Sorry that the Skype thing didn't work.
Yeah, likewise. Modern technology, you love it or hate it, one or the other.
True.
Hey,
that's right.
Hey, thanks for being with us. What a fun book. I'll tell you what, you got 7 minutes, go.
Yeah, I have to clarify, there are 3 different sets of 7s in the book.
Right.
7 things that you can do right now, you can start doing based on working with 1,366 people. And there are 7 things you can stop doing to make your marriage better. And then there are the 7 minutes that will really change your relationship if you spend these 7 minutes every day.
All right. Couple things. Why did you write this book? What led you to take on this topic?
Well, I've always been fascinated with what God's Word can do for people, and we just don't really know how to apply it. We get confused, like people say God honors the peacekeepers, and so they just keep the peace in the marriage. But, God honors the peacemakers, not the peacekeepers. And sometimes you have to disturb the peace to make peace. And so I wanted to get people to take a look at what the Bible has to say about their marriage. And with a study that was done with the Center of biblical engagement, they found that if you would read the Bible, get involved with it 4 times out of 7, it would lower the percentage rate of you getting divorced by about 80%. It would lower infidelity by about 70%. It would lower a person's in the interaction rate, lashing out in anger about 60%. It really has a dramatic impact. So if we can get people, take 7 minutes a day, little devotional time, read the scripture together a little bit, pray together just a little bit, check in with each other, it'll change your relationship. Then I give you, okay, we're going to change, stop this and start this. I wanted people to have some tools that they could use immediately. And here's probably the best part of the book.
All right.
I've got these 7 things to start and 7 things to stop. But every one of the things has 7 things to do if your spouse won't start or stop anything that needs to be started or stopped. So it gives you plan B, which I think is the best part of the book.
Okay, we literally have about 7 minutes left, so let's kind of see if we can jump through these real quick. The 7 things to stop, Stephen.
Well, one thing you could stop would be criticism of the other person. You know, there is absolutely no value to criticism. People say, well, what about constructive criticism? Mm-hmm. Well, that would be like arrogant criticism is what that would be, and that would be just criticism with a smile versus a frown if it's constructive. But really what you want to do is you want to solve problems. When you criticize somebody, they don't change. Research shows that. Mm-hmm. They dig in their heels and they defend their ground, and they end up being more resistant to change than ever before. So if you want a person to do the things that would please you the most, you need to free them up. You need to motivate them and inspire them to live a better life, rather than thinking that if you just criticize and nag enough, it's going to change. Another thing that you could stop doing immediately is focusing on the negative things that the person does. The more you focus on their negatives, the more they will be calling attention to their negatives. You obviously married this person because there was something attractive, something fascinating. You better get back and find out what those particular things are if you want to have a marriage that has a future. Another thing people do is they focus on the past, and there's nothing that could be done about that past other than forgive it. Another thing, people are riddled. We have this on New Life Live all the time. Riddled with jealousy and suspicion. Look, don't be jealous and suspicious. If the person's got a problem, confront them about the problem, encourage them to get help for their unfaithfulness, but to continue to be suspicious and to be the detective destroys the connection in the marriage. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're being suspicious because you were in a relationship before where the person was unfaithful, cheated on you, whatever. Or maybe that's the way you saw your parents act. But don't bring that into this marriage. And again, if there's evidence that it would be appropriate to be suspicious, then take care of the problem rather than continuing to be the detective.
Wow. All right.
So those are some things to stop.
All right. Give us a couple things quickly to start.
Well, start responding romantically to each other. You know, find the fun things and the romantic things to do so that you end up with a sexually gratifying relationship. You know, the divorce rate's about 50% in the Christian world and the secular world, but the married miserables, that's even a bigger percentage. And you got all these people with friendship relationships and platonic relationships, and I want to get people back in bed together, I guess you could say. So we got to start with the romance, and we've got to start with inspiring each other to kind of transcend yourself and your own mundane existence and see the potential of each other and enjoy each other in a way that maybe you haven't before. Another thing that you want to start is you want to start affirming that person every day. This isn't just seeing the positive things, but say it to them. Say something positive about them. Look for something good that they're doing every single day. So all of this builds the connection, and it builds security. If you don't have security in your relationship, then it's going to be very difficult for that relationship to grow, because you need to know who you're married to. You need to know that they're consistent in what they say they do and what they do, and then you need to feel the security of all that. And so all of this is building connection and security in your relationship.
All right, the book is entitled The 7-Minute Marriage Solution, 7 Things to Stop, 7 Things to Start, in 7 Minutes That Matters. What's the 7 minutes?
Well, the 7 minutes is I lay it out there, and then there's a devotional Bible that comes along that does it for you. But each of you read a little bit of Scripture, you pray with each other, and you ask each other, what can I be praying for you for? And you check in and you talk a little bit. So you get outside of yourself, you get a spiritual perspective. It's kind of like a 7-minute reboot key for every relationship, where you start to focus not on each other but on God, what God wants for you as an individual and what God wants for you as a couple.
Well, Stephen, this is fascinating. Again, it's called the 7-Minute Marriage Solution. I'll hold it up to the camera there so you can see it. 7 things to stop, 7 things to start, and 7 minutes that matters. And well, thank you for your time. I'm sorry we couldn't get you on Skype, but maybe we'll get you back.
Yeah, me too.
This is fascinating, and it's put out by Worthy Publishing, so check it out at the Christian bookstores or online. And Stephen, keep up the good work. Are you doing a sequel to this or anything like it?
I don't know. I may do the raising your kids in 7 minutes. I haven't figured it out yet.
Do you know Dr. Kevin Lehman? Maybe you ought to talk to him,
Maybe I should. I do know Kevin. He's great.
Yeah, he's funny. He comes up here and goes fishing all the time. Hey, thank you, Stephen. Have a great day, my friend. God blessings on you.
All right. See you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.